to an episode of Friday Drinks on a Friday. This is what we do. This is what we get to hang and with our friends. And today's another very interesting guest that we have, but he's not a guest. He's a friend. Another market analyst, somebody who knows what they're actually talking about, and we've got a number of things that we want to talk about. And he's written tons and tons around the retail sector, and we thought, you know what, let's bring him in and let's hear more about what's actually happening in Zimbabwe, Zimbabwean companies, as well as just the broad spectrum. Maybe we could start by just introducing yourself to our audience and what you do.
Okay, thank you, Tinashe, for inviting me.
Yeah.
So my name is Sylvester. I'm a financial analyst. I work with a common called SMRI Institute, which is Sylvester Mpando Research Institute.
Okay.
So I do mostly financial analysis, valuations. So I've worked with a number of people, a number of companies in valuations, private equity, and private debt.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So we're looking forward to this. And what are you drinking? So apparently you're.
Yeah, I'm just doing juice. I don't do alcohol.
Okay. All right. So you're in good company. Shumba is not with us. He's gone out running somewhere in Nyanga. I don't envy him one bit, but I'm sure you will have a wonderful weekend. And Ziva?
Mkanya. Yeah, look, it's a different show today. Shumba is not around, so let's try and make him see that we don't miss him that much.
Well, we were already late in starting.
But look, he's our buddy, so definitely we'll miss you. Wherever you are, Shumba, you are missed, but have fun responsibly.
Well, let's hope so. But we didn't start on time, and we were hell-bent on starting on time. Just to prove Shumba that he's actually the problem. Why we never start on time.
Yeah, he's still the problem. So he contributed for the late start. Sorry, my guy, you're gonna pin the blame on you since you're not around.
Okay, and your week? What's been happening in your week?
Look, nothing different from the usual. So shuttling between the investment firm and the law firm. So I've started on my practice, and
So have you been in court?
A couple of times.
Yeah. So tell us about the experience.
Look, it's obviously it's a different experience for me. It's I don't know. I'm not too sure what I can or cannot say, because this is there's so many rules and there's so many authorities that can whip you up. So I don't know what can be deemed to be out of line or is different from the investments world where we generally work as colleagues, as buddies. You only see the difference on the paycheck. And on bonus day,
okay,
and sometimes even in the parking lot where someone is parking a big car. But when you're in the dealing room or you are in the research room, you're just like colleagues, as it were. Yeah. But
what is that different with lawyers?
I don't know, but you see, there's.
I suppose it's adversarial.
There's someone who owns the courtroom, right?
The judge.
Yeah, so obviously, yeah. So look, it's a different experience. I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
They've also gone into rescue. Corporate rescues. And we've seen that a lot of the retailers have been struggling. From your perspective, just give us an idea of what has been happening over the last year and what you're seeing in that particular sector.
It's tricky because this sector is really struggling. And we should expect more, closures in the next coming months or years. So what I think happened is when Mutuli came in 2018, these companies were doing well. So the retail industry makes money when the economy is stable. So the first thing that you need to do for the retail and manufacturing sector to work properly, you need to stabilize the economy. So during the ESD era, these companies were doing well, probably averaging margins of 8% per annum EBIT margins. Revenues were too high. in USD terms. Look at OK, TM, Migos, they were doing well. But Kemo Tuli, with his, his mathematics, he brought in a new currency which he wants to force on onto the market as the saw currency. That thing changed the entire picture of the retail market. So you would find that right now, OK is is in trouble. Why? Because they are getting projects from INSCO, from National Foods, from Megamart on credit, but in USD currency. And they are getting sales probably almost 80% in ZIG, which is Zim dollars, and only 20% in USD. So they can't really cover their operating costs, all the operating costs in USD, because whenever they get this Zim dollar is depreciating on a day-to-day basis. So we would want to believe that the currency is currently stable. The currency is not stable, because if you go to the black market and the interbank rate, you see that the rates are different. And most of their suppliers pay their price on the black market rate. So at the end of the day, they are always making loss, either from distortions, from interest on loans, which are USD, and yet they're getting money in dollars. So all those factors affect, these are macro environment factors, affected operations. But we should also not forget that some of these companies have microeconomic issues. I'll give you an example of OK, and why I think it should go under. I'm not feeling I'm not sure about OK. Why? In 2022, 2023, we were already aware of what was to come in terms of the macroeconomic environment. Things were not getting any better because of inflation and exchange rates. But OK was issuing dividends in USD. They were complaining that 80% of their revenue is coming in ZIG, only 20% is coming in USD. They were taking that USD, paying out dividends at a time when preserving the value in USD was critical. So they distributed over probably 5 million if you combine the dividend that was paid in 2023, 2024. 5 million. And in 2023, after issuing out a dividend of 3 million, close to 3 million, they went out 5 months after that and borrowed 5 million from a bank at 8% interest. What was that for? You are issuing out a dividend of 3.5 million or 3.9 million, and you're going out to borrow money. So the issue comes to priorities, capital allocation issues.
Okay.
So why are you issuing out a dividend? Because you want to protect.
Perhaps they believed in ZIG and the stability. I mean, government came out and said we're introducing ZIG and there will be stability. And you talk.
The environment is affecting, and also we have to look at what these guys are doing in terms of allocating resources, because they also take advantage. Because remember, these are people; they're looking for money. So what they would do is they would take advantage of the macro environment. It's dislocated, everyone knows. So if we do 1, 2, 3 things, no one will notice. Who blame this? So OK is just an example, because OK's information is on the public domain. Okay. We can all get to see what's happening. OK, but I can't say the same for
So let's look at Pick and Pay and INSCO. What are your thoughts there?
They are not doing. Pick and Pay is not doing well. We know that. Pick and Pay is under Migos. Yeah. Migos is struggling, boss. Yeah, Migos is not doing well.
So what's the problem there with Pick and Pay? Is this still the same issue?
Right now, if you look at their parent company, which is Migos, it's going through under a lot of corporate governance issues. Right now, they're fighting. Some people were fired recently. So you should also, that corporate governance issue also contributes to the performance of a company. So whenever you're looking at a company, you have to look at qualitative fundamentals, which is management, and other qualitative issues, and quantitative, which is their numbers, which are as a result of what they're doing qualitatively. Okay. So you can't take away the money.
But you're talking about the same management, the same companies that were doing well in a stable economy. If you look at the last 15 years, they were able to raise money. They were able to do very, very, very well. So you can't say the same management now is problematic.
So you see what happens is, like I said when I started, I said these companies tend to perform well when the economy is doing better. But anytime a turbulence comes, they get exposed.
Okay.
They get exposed. So when things are well, right, everyone is buying OK, right? You don't see some of these misallocation of funds because they can still get a loan from a bank and cover it up over a period of 10 years. But when a turbulence comes and a period of hardship comes, like what happened between 2018 and 2019, whatever they were doing before, which was working, couldn't work. Because taking a loan, leveraging your company, at a time when preserving value is critical, doesn't work. So the management should have adjusted whatever they were doing before. So they got stuck to their dividend policy. Because now if you ask why OK was paying a dividend, they will tell you that we had a policy of paying a dividend during the USD era. But times have changed. Why is you doing the same thing?
Okay.
Do you see the point?
Okay.
So you adjust based on how things are,
The environment is changing. Okay, so Zia, what I'm getting from Slaya is that we perhaps give too much credence to our policymakers and we believe them. And yet the history of our policymakers is that for the last 10 years, things have been extremely turbulent. We've had 3-4 currency changes, interest hikes, we've changed all sorts of policies. And it's really incumbent upon the management and us as managers, as business leaders, to actually appreciate that no matter what they say, let's actually understand the fundamentals. There's high uncertainty and instability and volatility, and we need to manage that. There's no excuse, because then the same policymakers will come and blame us for not adapting to the macros. What's your view on that?
So when you look at the corporates or the corporate executives, I think they tend to have sort of double sort of perspectives to macroeconomic issues. So when it comes to their own balance sheet, they are like you and me. So they know exactly what's going on. So you wouldn't find them making the same decisions on their personal balance sheet to the decisions that they are making for the corporate. So when they are sitting in a chair as an executive and they want to, plan for the corporate, they tend to have a different shift. And usually that mindset is usually informed by official sort of positions.
They toe the line.
So it cuts across. That's why I find every time there's an announcement, the first thing that you see publicly is to say, "No, well done, so and so," whether it's the minister or the governor. This is a very, or maybe a fantastic statement. They never really articulate the issues that they feel maybe needed to be addressed. Maybe they do that privately, but publicly they don't. So even in terms of the planning, I think it then cascades into their planning also, that they are planning with the assumption that whatever projections that are coming from the monetary authorities, from the fiscal authorities, they are correct, And I guess the reason is you can always defend it. It's like over the years as analysts, the most difficult thing to do was to take a speculative position into some, third tier kind of stock. But if you just put your money in Delta, in Econet, in Inscore, it was going to be easier, even with the trustees, because it was always a difficult question to answer if a trustee was to ask you, why did you put your money into this?
Okay.
So I think they are taking a safer kind of position. I think it's also just a reflection of the fact that maybe for quite a number of them, they have no skin in the game. It's not their money.
Okay, so you've raised important factors here, the principal agent problem, that the agent is acting on behalf of a company,
yes,
but they've been burnt before in the past.
Yeah.
So where the authorities have taken some of, you remember Willard Zereva actually went to jail. So they know the consequences of not towing the line. So if you look at what happened with the new governor when he came in and he said, this is the official price you must trade at, I think the cost of not adhering to those price controls is very personal. And you're taking you're taking the wrong end of the stick for the company and not in your personal capacity.
Yes.
So why should you? The costs are just. Is that a correct characterization? That these companies are less innovative, and primarily because the cost of not adhering to price controls is just too much. Like, what you end up in jail if you don't adhere to the price controls.
But here's the problem. This is what I think. They seem to be a network, because if you look at these executives, they rotate. They rotate each other. He moves from this company to this company, from this position to this position. He's fired from this bank, he goes to this bank straight. He's fired from this bank, he goes to this bank. And he's fired because he has done something immoral, something that is against corporate governance, something against, he's a moral hazard. But he's taken this other bank. Why is that so? They seem to be a network of these other guys who are at the top. They cover each other. The only few guys you can mention who actually went to jail because they did something. So
in 2008, it was quite a lot of them, eh?
Of course.
And then the fines. And if you remember what happened between John 1 and John 2, when John 2 came on, a lot of people got arrested. A lot of the traders,
what happened?
Black market
So
traders.
you are arresting these kids who are on the street. These kids are not doing anything. These kids are,
But they were actually keeping the retailers afloat because they were giving a rate that is much higher than what the retailers were forced to charge. So the minute you took them off the street, then the retailers were exposed.
Did that work?
No, obviously, from a macro perspective, it didn't work.
Yeah.
So maybe I think the other issue is, there is no cost to bad decision making in the corporate.
Yeah.
So if you make a bad decision, the company is in trouble, it goes into judicial management or it goes into corporate rescue. I would say
you can walk away.
You can walk away.
Yeah.
You can walk away.
And you're still in good books with the authorities.
You still get hired by someone else.
Yeah. So I remember I went to this, members meeting or shareholders meeting, etc. And then I was sitting there with a friend of mine. I was like, but you see, it's because of the whole concept here, limited liability, which is a good concept. You can practically walk away with Meda as it way. The only sector that I know where you can't do that is financial services. So if you mess up, there is no corporate rescue. Okay, there was a time, your mom, curators or whatever.
Yeah.
But what we know is most of the institutions that went into curatorship were not really resuscitated.
Okay.
So there must be a cost to some of these bad decisions. And if there are costs attached to that, it means in future that will then inform the decision making of the executives. Yeah, but just ask yourself this question. Even when you look at the value loss in 2008, it's yes, we all lost value, but I think at individual levels, pretty much everyone was doing their very best to ensure that the extent of the loss is minimized. That was not so with the corporate.
Okay.
Yeah. So the alignment, the agent principal alignment is not there.
It's not there. Okay. Yeah. So the next one I want to talk to is, let's actually talk about the financial services sector. What are your thoughts there?
I think
when you look at the banks that are listed, the ones that you're analyzing,
it's dislocated, boss. It's dislocated, and you can't have a functioning financial service market when your monetary policy is just in shambles. Okay. So you look at those banks, you look at CBZ, you look at FBC. Those are the worst performing banks in terms of ratios, in terms of operations. Out of the 5 listed banks in Zimbabwe, we've got First Capital, we've got ZB, we've got Stuart Bank, which is EcoCash. And you'll be surprised that those 2, which are the worst performing out of those 5, are the ones that are currently making acquisitions. Why are they making acquisitions? CBZ wanted to buy ZB. Why did CBZ wanted to buy ZB? They gave you reason that we want to create a monster that can underwrite government projects, which is not, completely true. What they were eyeing is probably an asset in Mashinal Holdings, which is one of the largest asset owners in Zimbabwe, which is now under ZB. So how do you get to Mashinal and you buy ZB? So they want to control, the real estate industry. They want to control the insurance industry through First Mutual, which was also, blocked by the Competition.
But if they have the money, why would you have a problem with it?
One, you're killing competition. ZB is one of the best performing companies in banks on ZSC right now. Yeah. If you look at their non-performing loans ratio, it's probably less than 2%. Average in Zimbabwe is probably 2% or so. Global standard is 5%. In 2019, when Zamco bought non-performing loans from all the banks in Zimbabwe, there were 20-something. 60% came from CBZ alone.
Yeah, but they've cleaned that up. Well, hyperinflation has cleaned it up, and hyperinflation second time 2.0 is going to clean that up.
It's not about cleaning it up. Mm-hmm. It's about the culture of the business. Has that changed? Right now, last year, farmers were crying that these guys are overcharging us on their inputs under that agro-yield kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's something that goes for $100, CBZ is charging $200. And when farmers default, because farmers were defaulting...
CBZ is not forcing you to come to them.
Of course, but we're talking of business, culture. You want to take that culture into ZB, which is performing well, and destroy ZB. Because you want to get your hands on the assets. You want to get your hands... So for me, it's all about consolidating power. Want to have create a monster, which is not good for business. That's why the Commission said, no, you can't do that.
No, I think it only said you can't do that as far as FML is concerned.
No,
but between
National and Holdings.
Okay.
Because National and Holdings is owned by ZB. So they said ZB has to divest from National and Holdings.
Okay.
Then ZB said, no, we can't, because that's what we need. That's what they needed. So they
but that's very typical in Wall Street, in the city, in London. That's very typical. I can buy an asset because I believe that the asset that's within the company is undervalued. Why would that be a problem?
But
and why would the competition commission? Why would the competition commission get into that fight?
As stakeholders, we might not have the money to buy it as well, but we have an interest in that company.
But you're undervaluing it. Fine. Is it my problem?
Fine. Now we have to go back to the shareholders. They have to do something to push the value of that company. We don't have to kill competition simply because they've got the money. We're killing competition. We need customers to be choosing from what they want. They need to be identifying a bank which is doing well for them and go with that.
But Sly,
you don't have to
come on. Yeah. Sly, if ZB has this asset and the market has perpetually undervalued it, and an investor sees that asset and thinks, that's something that I would want to have.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
So I don't see anything wrong with it. If ZB was complementing CBZ, I would say it's okay. Like Inisco buys a business that complements its current, operations. That's cool. But if ZB is eliminating competition, not because they want to control the supply chain, but they just want to consolidate this whole thing, create a monster, killing competition. That's not healthy.
Okay. Ranga, what are your thoughts? Because I see absolutely nothing wrong. It's a market, and if somebody sees value, it's up to them to decide whether or not they should buy the company. Yeah. I don't see anything wrong, and if I were in the Competitions Commission, I would just let it be. I don't see any problem whatsoever. But let's hear your thoughts on this.
So if it's a purely commercial transaction, I also wouldn't see anything wrong with that. So mergers and acquisition, we love them. It's they keep the industry vibrant. They also create work for some of us who are in corporate advisory. And I think on a day-to-day basis, we are always looking at businesses that could possibly be good fit with some other business, or maybe if we think maybe this thing has to be, demerged or deconstructed into something different. I think the financial minds must be allowed to, to be exercising themselves on a regular basis. So if it's a purely a commercial transaction where it's being done because there is value to be unlocked, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. Specifically for the CBZ, ZB, FMO transaction, I'm not moralizing. I personally had my own issues because I didn't see value creation from the combined business. So for the simple reasons that when you're looking at, say from banking point of view, and to Sly's point, the CBZ brand and the ZB brand are totally different. And I think banking is one sector where, the 1 + 1 = 3 of synergy does not always, pans out. You could actually create or shrink the value of the combined business because it's about the brand, it's also about the culture, it's about, if there was a client who was with ZB because they were ZB, and you are putting them together with, say, a CBZ, and maybe they didn't like CBZ for one reason or another, they'll just take their banking outside.
I totally differ from you guys, but maybe let's. So for me, it's really about was it value creative, or it was there were some other motivations. If there were some other motivations, still, they wanted an asset.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Transaction can still happen. I know of so many transactions, even in this market, where someone bought something not necessarily because they wanted whatever the incumbent that they bought. If it makes sense to buy ZB so that you can access Mashonaland Holdings, it's still a good commercial transaction.
You know what they say, if you're going after a single mother and she's with a son or daughter, you can buy a suite for the kid. Anyway, I won't go any further. But so talking about these mergers and acquisitions, Sly, could you speak to us around? We saw Stanchart and FCB joining, merging. Would you say that there was value created there? Just because we're talking about this, I thought so let's just raise the point.
I don't have much details about that transaction.
Okay.
But what I know is. FBC did a good thing because Stanchart was one of the best performing banks in Zimbabwe, with probably some international roots. It has a good clientele base on the corporate side. It was one of the most, well-managed banks. So they inherited probably a number of good clients, corporate clients, who probably, that is if those clients, if those clients are still willing to deal with them. But like I said, if you look at the numbers closely, rank these 5 listed companies, you'd find that better performing banks are probably ZB, First Capital. Then you start to look at these other guys. I'm not sure about Ecocash, but these are the 2 guys, right? And these are the guys that are buying, that are on the forefront
of buying
other banks.
Okay.
So my opinion is they are doing this because they want to get access to something that they can create for themselves. So FBC, we know, is struggling. They have to buy this other company with some assets, and some clients to boost their operations.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the banks that are doing well, what are they doing right, in your opinion?
For me, it's if you look at, for example, I looked at CBZ, ZB. One, it's corporate governance. There's so much involvement of government in CBZ. Loans goes out. Most of them don't come back because there's this involvement of government officials, powerful people.
But government owns ZB as well.
Yeah, but you rarely see ZB getting involved in these government projects. For example, Command Agriculture. It went through CBZ. I'm not sure if that thing was a success, but CBZ, if anything happens to those projects that are related to government, CBZ suffers because that thing has to go.
So you're saying that ZB has a better way of managing its stakeholders?
It's either they know how to manage it better, or they're a bit conservative when it comes to those.
Okay, all right. Let's go into mining. What are the exciting stories around mining, and what are the problems in mining? And the listed companies, the companies that you're looking at.
Reozim, struggling. Mm-hmm. You can't really tell what's exactly is the problem, because gold prices are going up every day. So it's purely an operational thing. The thing is rotten. Yeah. From a cash flow point of view, because right now they can't pay credits. They are the creditors. They can't continue the operation. Then in talks with another probably potential investor. Then Padenga is doing perfectly well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is Padenga successful?
So for me, it's all about critical decision making. Those guys are smart. And I think the major shareholders who are the INSCO guys, Zed, Michael Fowler, are different. They run their thing differently from the way we run our things. So you find that in 2019, 2020, when COVID was about to strike, those guys took a dramatic shift from crocodile skins to gold. Then 2020, gold price started going up like crazy, and they capitalized on that. They grew their revenue.
They doubled. In fact, gold price since then have doubled.
Yeah, and they've made so much money. And 90% of their revenue now is coming from gold in a space of 3-4 years.
So that's the strategic shift that you're saying during the same period. If you look at, they didn't make that strategic shift.
Exactly. And Reozim was already, struggling, and they couldn't help it. They could
so the ability of Padenga to actually raise capital, because they're backed by INSCO, whereas Reozim and everybody else in terms of just raising capital. Do you think that raising capital is an issue?
For Padenga, it's not an issue, because...
But the other guys were struggling. I'm saying the guys who are struggling do you think that raising capital is part of the problem?
Raising capital, I think, is not. I don't think it's a problem, because you can always get cash, from outside at a cost, of course. You can get cash in Zimbabwe at 20%. But the point is, are you able to generate sufficient cash flows to pay back those loans?
So you still need to be a good operator.
Exactly.
Okay. So exciting stories in mining, Caledonia.
I'm not really.
You're not okay. All right. Then let's talk about manufacturing. There's a reason why I want to talk about manufacturing. Yeah. But just your view when you look at the listed companies that are manufacturers, how well are they doing, and what's your perspective of them?
So
do they suffer the same problems that we found in the retailers?
Not really. With companies like INSCO, which is also into manufacturing, companies like National Foods, they're doing perfectly well in USD terms. INSCO is generating probably $2 right now in revenue for every dollar invested capital. Super efficient. The ROIC is in the 20s, 30s. Same with National Foods, generating probably $3 in revenue for every $1 invested capital. So they're doing 2 times what they're putting in the business. They've invested over 200 million. The INSCO group, which also encompasses these other guys, over 200 million in the last 4 years. In upgrading their things, in bringing new technology, and probably very soon they're going to unbundle something, I just suspect, because they are on the verge of hitting $1 billion. They usually get something out of the group whenever they get towards $1 billion. So then probably 900 something they did 900 something last year.
But they've actually delisted Netfoods.
No, I mean not delisting, but taking something out of the INSCO group.
Okay. All right. Okay. No, fair enough.
Unbundling, taking it independent.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So you'll find that even the delisting of National Foods was because they say we don't money from the market. We do have money. They have got sufficient cash flows, so they dominate the market. Okay. National Foods damages its side. The INSCO group with all these other guys dominates the industry.
Okay.
So I think they have got ways of raising capital at a lower cost.
All right.
Yeah. Within their own system.
All right. So what I'm getting from you, just looking at the Zimbabwean economy.
But if you look at companies like ART, which is also a manufacturing company, which does batteries, Excite batteries, which does papers, and it's struggling, boss. Yeah,
Why are you laughing? Paper. Because we no longer use paper.
We no longer use paper, and they're struggling to manufacture tissues.
Why are they struggling?
They can't recapitalize. They say we can't raise enough money. They don't have enough cash flows to do all those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much of competition from China and the rest of the world? A lot of these products are products that, the Chinese have flooded African markets. So it's very difficult to just compete. How much of it is just a very competitive market?
So you go to a restaurant right now, you look at their toothpicks. They're written at the bottom that they're made in China, right? Mm-hmm. I was told that some of the PowerPoints that we are using right now are coming from India and China. A PowerPoint costs you 10 cents, 20 cents, but we're shipping them from China and sell them at a profit in Zimbabwe. And you're failing to manufacture through that.
Economies of scale, boss.
And also cost of doing business in Zimbabwe.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where the issue is, the cost of doing business in Zimbabwe. So it's expensive to do it in India, bring it to Zimbabwe and sell it at a profit. Not only in Zimbabwe, even in South Africa. I've got a friend who is in the steel industry. He told me that they get their steel from South Africa, but their suppliers are complaining because Chinese are manufacturing steel from China, ship it to South Africa, and sell it at a low price. And they can't understand how is it possible. Okay. So if you talk of China, we can't put Zimbabwe and China here on the same table. We are.
But things that you can manufacture in China, you can't beat them. I mean, electricity in China is less than 5 cents kilowatt hour.
Here we don't have electricity.
Yeah. So I think that I hear the argument on cost of doing business, but I also think that China would always kick our ass, whichever way you look at it, especially with these smaller things like toothpicks. Yeah. Actually, because at the end of the day, and why should we complain as consumers? Because what you want inherently as a consumer is the lower price. Mm-hmm. Is that not it? Yeah. So do you care that the toothpick is manufactured
you don't care.
in Zimbabwe or it's manufactured in Africa?
You don't care. What you need is something that is probably economic for you. You just need something that is cheap. But from a macroeconomic perspective, from a development perspective, from a manufacturing perspective, you need to be manufacturing your own things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then let's actually get into it. Zia, you've heard what the young man has said, that we need to be manufacturing on our own. So while it is true that consumers are better off because they're getting cheaper toothpicks, but we need to actually support our domestic industries. Would it be fair to say that therefore there's raised tariffs on toothpicks and Mabiro?
Well, look, it's very difficult to, for me to support this notion of, let's produce in Zimbabwe necessarily. If it doesn't make economic sense to produce, maybe we should not. Because, if you can get it cheaper from another country, and the customer, you are presenting them with more options, better even options. We can't really be fixated on this UDI mentality of import substitution, of looking. It
doesn't work for
of looking inwardly. I think maybe as a country we need to just look at ourselves and say, what is it that we are good at? That we could possibly focus on and say, let's produce this. Because, trying to make all these companies produce in an environment where, product can actually be shipped all the way from China and still lands here cheaper. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's actually not good for the economy, because now it means we're going to spend a lot of money trying to support these industries, like this targeted financial facility from the RBZ, to boost productive sector and whatever. It's really not necessary. We just need to look at things that we can do better. I think in agriculture we've got a competitive advantage.
It turns out not so much. I think that our competitive advantage is actually people. I think exporting people.
Okay, maybe let me articulate my issue. So I would say agriculture, because we've got the land. It's just that we are not we are not utilizing it. We are not utilizing it. What if we invite investment onto our land for people to produce?
Land is everywhere.
No. I mean,
that's not a competitive advantage.
Okay, I mean arable, the one that
it's
you can
not even titled. So let's not.
Okay, we don't want to go there to the title discussion.
Your point is well made. We need competitive advantage.
Let's do things that we do
have a competitive advantage.
We are better at.
Okay, so Sly, make your argument on why you think that we should support the local manufacturers and we should develop our local manufacturers.
So right now we are crying about the informal market destroying these formal business like OK, Trade Center, all these big companies. Why is that so?
Someone is asking, just as an aside, he's saying, why do you only speak of these traditional Eurocentric companies? There's no mention of Chinese or local Zims. What about Manise? And so on and so forth. So maybe
we'll get into that.
They're saying maybe the economic structure is shifting away
from the former. I think Sly was getting into that.
Yeah.
So let's hear your argument, and then we'll get into that. But let's hear your argument on why you support, subsidizing or improving the local manufacturers. So Zia's argument is we've tried it for the last 60 years since UDI, import substitution. When does it end? Because we're continuously and perpetually in that import substitution cycle.
I think you're not doing it the right way. So here's my opinion. So I'm saying we are crying that these informal guys, the retailers and all these informal players are pushing out big guys out of the market. And currently 60% of our people, employed people, which is probably 5 million, are employed in the informal market, according to the numbers that you have on the internet. Why is that so? It's because we are not doing enough to incentivize our local manufacturing companies. So, how many people are losing their jobs when the trade center closes or food world closes? When and if? How many are they? If and when OK closes, how many people are going to lose jobs? Thousands of people. Where are those people going? So if we say let's only focus on what we have an advantage on, which is farming, not everyone should go to farming.
No, let's forget about farming. We don't have a competitive advantage in farming. Turns out
we can't be saying everyone.
We don't have a competitive advantage. Let's talk about something else.
So we need something that
Kenya doesn't like farming.
We need something that probably helps improve the lives of the ordinary people. Incentivize these companies, right? Substitute imports with local manufacturing products. Create employment for the locals. That's what improves the life of the locals.
Okay, so I think the major point that I'm getting from you, and Zia coming, if you have a different view, what I'm getting is, first of all, if you look at just the economic, the economic environment, the macros of China or South Africa, and you look at Zimbabwe, already Zimbabwean companies are at a disadvantage because South Africa is a stable economy. Interest rates in South Africa are stable. 12% on the rand. Interest rates in China are 6%. But again, corporate tax in China is 15%. So when you look at those environments, already Zimbabwe is at a disadvantage. So it can't even compete. So the first thing that we probably need to do is the ease of doing business. Let's just make sure that it's easier to do business. And we look at our competition and we say, where are the toothpicks actually coming from? They're coming from China. What does China's macroeconomic environment look like compared to us? Would that be a good start? Before we get into tariffs and everything else, it's just comparing our ease of doing business, our macroeconomic environment compared to elsewhere around the world.
We probably don't need to go to tariffs because we're not going to win the war. against anyone. Yeah, so we don't need to go to those areas. We probably need to focus on what we can do here in Zim just to promote our own manufacturing. How do we make, how do we ease the environment and make it probably cheaper to manufacture from inside than taking from outside? But if you talk of putting embargoes, tariffs, we will die because we are relying on those countries. We are talking of toothpicks that are coming from China, ballpoints that are coming from India. The food stuff that we see in bar are coming from South Africa. If we close the border, we put tariffs, we're going to die. Right? Yeah. So we need to find another way of doing it without fighting anyone.
So it's probably the macros.
Exactly.
Would you agree with that? Tia?
Yes. That has been the problem over the years. It's not like, when you speak to some of these businesses, their stories are always ending at a point where maybe some policy measure was announced or something just happened or the currency just collapsed or whatever. Look, it's actually very difficult to do business in Zimbabwe. That's why sometimes I'm a bit uncomfortable with really pointing fingers at people running businesses because it's harder, The things that you have to deal with. Typically, other business people in other countries, they don't have those sort of problems. Where you just wake up one day, the currency has been changed overnight.
Yeah.
The banks have been instructed to stop lending. Interest rate has been increased from 50 to 200%, and you just wake up one day, there's a directive to say prices have to revert to prices that were there few months ago in a hyperinflating environment.
Okay.
So yeah, it's the macros, is the cost of doing business, is the general economic conditions, to a point that if you were to take that Chinese, that producer in China, and you bring them here in Zim, they'll still struggle.
Yeah.
So it just tells you that the problem is actually not our producer, your manufacturers per se, is the environment.
It's the environment.
And I would also then say the same applies. If you were to give the local industry, local manufacturer, the same sort of conditions, similar sort of conditions,
they would
thrive.
They would thrive. Okay, all right. Okay, I think that point is well made. But let's now talk about the new steel manufacturer, Dinson Maniza, just outside of Mvuri. What are your thoughts on that? Is that the model that we're now going towards when you look at the Chinese and the way the Chinese have invested in the country? Will that give us a competitive edge?
I don't know. Yeah.
Suddenly you've lost your time. This young man had a lot to say. Now suddenly he's lost his tongue.
Maybe this might be the beginning of a new chapter in terms of, because you're talking of volumes of steel that are coming out of there. Maybe that we have probably, that will take us to another dimension. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, so gentlemen, let's just go through the news and we'll go through each items that has just been preferred. And so this part of the segment is just a quick response to whatever.
But when it's still in mining, there's this issue of, they call it, this mineral, which is in Bikita. What's it called?
Lithium.
Mm-hmm.
So if you read properly about lithium prices in Zimbabwe, global prices, and how much that thing in Bikita was sold in a couple of years ago, there is a huge dislocation between the price and the value.
That's the risky mining around the world.
But this was too much. It was bought at less than probably % of what's its estimated to be its value, actual value, like value of the reserves. So you'd find that if you go on some pages on the internet, you see that it was bought at a fraction, some millions, I think, 100 something millions or 200, and it's estimated to be worth some billions. You can't even imagine a difference of 200 million and 20 billion. and say this is the risky. So you are saying that they adjusted for this risky by more than 10 billion.
No, we are saying that there was a buyer and a seller in the market. If you think differently, then you should have just bought.
I don't have money.
There you go.
But the point is,
all right.
My point is...
Okay, so gentlemen, we need to move on very quickly. So I want us to respond to this. AFDB disburses 98.12% of disaster preparedness fund. I suppose this is across Africa. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about RBZ dismisses foreign currency shortage claims. So the Reserve Bank has stated that there is no foreign currency shortage, as supply currently exceeds demand from entities with valid invoices. RBZ Governor John Mshavanu highlighted that process from the support surrender requirements surpass market needs, contradicting business complaints about forex shortages. Exporters must surrender 30% of their proceeds, ensuring availability for non-exporters. So last week the RBZ said they sold 20 million and only 15 million was taken. So the RBZ is actually saying that there's no problem with as far as the forex market is concerned. Your thoughts? Start with you, Sly.
So what I think is every time RBZ says something, I look at the opposite way. So if you go into the black market right now, you look for Zig for Zig right now. You ask someone to send you Zig. They don't have. The markets are dry.
Well, isn't that a good thing?
Is liquidity crunch a good thing? I don't think so.
Well, that's what they're trying to do. They've sucked the liquidity out. You know. Zia, your thoughts?
There is no forex shortages. Yeah, look, it's we know there's a serious shortage. I think that's why we've got different markets.
Okay.
And his statement already is actually constrained by that factor that, if you've got invoices or whatever, genuine invoices or whatever, the moment you put that qualifier, then it just tells you that they are, there's a problem. Okay. Because
they can pick and choose.
If foreign currency is there, we don't need anyone to really
tell us.
Go on top of the mountain and start telling us, yeah.
We'll know. So juxtaposition that we hear that the Treasury hasn't been able to pay out suppliers now with invoices of over a year. And a lot of these invoices, even wheat farmers haven't been paid. They're actually in Zig.
It's a good thing. Okay, so look, it's not a good thing that these service providers have not been paid. It's a good thing that Treasury is actually trying to adhere to, so they are only paying from the cash flow that they have. In the past, Treasury working with RBZ would just print money, and then they'll pay it.
But eventually you're going to have to pay it.
Eventually they're going to have to pay, but also eventually the suppliers...
So how's that a good thing?
Eventually the suppliers will need to just start asking themselves, is that a good customer to be doing a business with going forward?
All right. So from that perspective...
From that perspective...
That the market is just going to go away from...
Just look at a junkie who cannot afford to pay for the drugs. At some point you want to say, you know what?
So who's the junkie?
It was just a bad analogy.
So I look at it this way. They have mopped up all the liquidity in the market, and they've created a hole for close to 2 billion money that should have been paid to the contractors. So what happens if somebody goes for a year without getting paid? Bankers will start pinching him. Suppliers will start coming back to him for their money. So what he does is he tries by all means to reduce cost. He lays off people. So people will go home.
So it's going to have a material impact.
The government is trying to stabilize currency at the expense of somebody who is earning $200 in that company.
The real economy. Yeah.
So it's not a good thing.
That's a very good point that you've made there. Very good point. Because it's money that they earned.
Yeah.
It's not like this is money that they are wishing for. Yeah. It's money that they earned, and you can't go for 2 years without that money. And then you've got these NNCDs that the RBZ has issued to exporters. And there was a question around, are those trading? Are they actually trading in the marketplace? Because I think the John 2 had said that you can actually trade from the exporters as well as the importers that were given that paper. Have you seen any trade, Ranga?
I know that the paper was they changed it from NNCD to some paper paying. Is it 5 to 6%? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But you see,
but is it trading?
It's not trading because the market is not liquid, right? Yeah, the market is not liquid. There are not too many people out there who have got US dollars which they want to exchange for an IOU or some ZIG or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
NBS targets unbanked population in expansion drive. The National Building Society aims to expand financial inclusion by reaching out to the unbanked population. Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah, but in other ways, so they're going for the informal market.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Yeah, so I've seen First Capital is doing the same as well.
Okay.
Which is, from a business perspective, which is good because you need BSD. BSD is embodied.
That's true.
Yeah.
Zia, for you, because we're running out of time. Zimbabwe targets China's 50 billion Africa Fund for Development. So Zimbabwe has identified 12 key projects for potential funding under the China's 50 billion facility, pledged at FOCAC in 2023. These include NRZ recapitalization, the Digital Zimbabwe project, new government buildings, airport upgrades. So a lot of infrastructural spend. Do you think that the Chinese will extend credit to us? I mean, already we're struggling to pay for Wange and a whole lot of other projects that the Chinese were kind enough to fund, but we've been struggling to pay back. What are your thoughts on this?
The Chinese are actually quite astute when it comes to business, eh? Mm-hmm. So if they extend credit to you and you don't pay, they'll have to get some concession from you in one form or another. So look, it's not possible. We should not expect that they'll just come with money and start throwing it like confetti at a wedding. They can streamline. Where they have got project for political reasons, whatever. They make it very clear that no, we are funding this, and they actually don't shy away from telling you that we are funding the rolling part, right? For any economic sort of project, they have to make economic sense. So it's not possible to be defaulting with the rest of the creditors, including the Chinese themselves, and still hope that maybe we'll be able to unlock, capital from any, fund which is there. And this is for Africa. Some other African countries are behaving very well, you see. So we must be able to compete at that stage in terms of...
We need to get our house in order.
Yeah, yes, being able to repay and make sure
sorry
that
to cut you because
Chinese, yes.
I just want to cover the next one, and this will be for you, Sly. Government targets a record 120,000 hectares for their winter wheat. The government aims to cultivate about 120,000 hectares for winter wheat this year, targeting 600,000 tons to boost food security and reduce imports. This surpasses last year 562,000 tons and exceeds the 360,000 tons self-sufficiency mark. We have wheat farmers that haven't been paid. Government is making all these promises. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Do you think we'll get there?
Those are promises, boss. Yeah, we need to look at the actual numbers when they come out. But I think it's quite difficult.
It's going to be difficult,
it's going to be difficult.
And we need to pay those farmers.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Sai. This was good. This was good fun.
Yeah.
We hope to see more of you. I especially enjoyed your analysis on companies. And that was very thoughtful. I think that this is something for the government and policymakers to think about. I think my key takeaway from this discussion is that if we're going to compete internationally, then we should, the ease of doing business is very important. The macros are very important because everywhere else around us, there is stability. And we can't continuously be in an unstable market. It just gives us a competitive disadvantage compared to everybody else. And that's how we end up with toothpicks on our dinner tables. Yeah. Otherwise, have yourself a wonderful Friday and weekend, and we will join you next week. Cheers.